Hi, this is Dan Harris, and welcome to the Ironbird podcast. On today's episode, we have Kim Herrell. She's the CEO, president, and owner of Schubach Aviation. Kim, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think we should start with maybe just how you got into private aviation, and then we'll roll into kind of how your roles have transitioned at Schubach.
Yes, that would be fun. One thing I wanted to say before we kicked off, it was so funny. I was looking up your email in my inbox, and I pulled up an email between you and I in like 2009 or something. We were booking a trip back and forth, and it made me laugh.
Was that TWC?
Yeah, I think
Aviation?
so. I think so. I feel like a lot of us have really grown up in this industry together, and it's fun to see, somehow we're in charge now.
Good luck to everybody.
Yeah, right.
But we've been in the trenches.
Absolutely, we've been in the trenches together. So your first question, how did I get into aviation?
Yeah.
So I was freshly out of college, living in Salt Lake City, Utah. That's where I'm from. I was working at a concierge during the 2002 Winter Olympics at the only 5-star hotel in Salt Lake at the time. So we developed a very close working relationship with Millionaire Salt Lake City. They were kind of the only game in town, and so any sort of dignitary, anyone flying in was being carefully transported between our hotel and their FBO. And after that wrapped up, they invited us out to just come see their operation. And I remember the first time I saw a private jet. I'm truly somebody that's a big adventurer at heart, and I think being a girl in Utah, it kind of really hit me. You could get in this plane and go anywhere and see the world, and it really kind of lit a fire. Mm-hmm. So initially I thought maybe I wanted to be a flight attendant. So I started asking them how would I get into that and talking to them about that, and they came back and said, hey, we don't really need flight attendants, but we're growing really quickly, and we would love to have you join our team to help just level up our customer service. I had been through Ritz-Carlton training. I guess they were impressed with me during that. Yeah. So I kind of said, sure, jumped on it, and there I went.
What kind of training is there at a lot of FBOs?
Yeah.
Not much, right?
Yeah, and this was on their charter team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is for their charter team specifically. I did actually try out being a flight attendant. Mm-hmm. Terrible at it. I'm definitely awkward when it comes to knowing when to approach, when to not, a little bit of a bull in a china shop energy. So I have a lot of respect for all of our cabin and flight attendants out there and that make it look easy.
They do.
It's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
So I started out at Millionaire Salt Lake in charter sales.
What airplanes do they have?
They had a really diverse fleet. We had a G4, a G3, a bunch of Hawkers, Lears way back in that. We were really the big game in town. So we had a lot of business. It was, a pretty thriving operation. And the first couple years when you expose somebody to, a flight department, especially a busy one, it's so much chaos. And I think people either really thrive in it and take to it, or they get out quickly. And for me, it was, I love chaos, and I can, take chaos and find my way to control it and get through it. And so, just really kind of fell in love with it from the beginning, felt like my skill set was well utilized. I then, after being with that company for a few years, decided I was ready to move to Southern California. I was trying to get to Orange County, where I had a bunch of friends living at the time, and ended up getting a job in Carlsbad, which I thought okay, this place seems pretty boring, but I'll move there just because it's close. So I took the position, and I did get offered a job in Orange County, I think 3 months later, an operator up there. But at that point I had seen just how great North County was. And so I said, no, thanks, I'm good. So that's really how I started in Carlsbad, working at Schubach Aviation. I was charter sales and scheduling. People that go back this far kind of know that Henry Schubach had a reputation for being very direct, and
it's a good way of putting it.
If you want to be told the truth, I always say ask Henry. If you don't want to be told the truth, then don't ask Henry. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, he and I just worked well together. Mm-hmm. I was pretty ambitious. I've always kind of thought like an entrepreneur, and even just being the newest salesperson on the team, I saw so much opportunity we weren't taking, and we could move the schedule here. Why are we saying no to these trips? And I think within 3 or 4 months, my sales were the rest of the team's combined.
It's how it usually is, right?
Yeah, and I'm guessing at the time people probably would have said, this girl's taking her job way too seriously.
Yeah.
And looking back, I probably was, but I think that's why I got the opportunities that I got. And so, yeah, I slowly earned Henry's trust over time. There were probably 3 or 4 times where I think I called my husband and said, hey, I think I'm going to get fired because I'm going to go tell Henry exactly what I think right now.
Yep.
I don't like this decision. I don't like this hire. And, here I go. And in doing that, I do think I further gained, some trust and respect.
Yeah.
But I also learned that when you do that, you get a lot more responsibility handed to you when you're pointing out things that could be better. And so I became the sales manager within a couple years, and then kind of took on marketing and sort of just running the whole flight operations team. And I think in about 2017, Henry and I had a conversation where he expressed he was ready to kind of step back a little bit. Needed somebody to come help take some of the stress off, and that I would become vice president of the company. And that was a pretty pivotal moment in my journey because I remember at the time going, you mean like vice president of sales, marketing? I took it and tried to make it smaller because it was intimidating. And he said, no, you're vice president of the company. And so,
were you thinking at that point, like in the back of your mind around that time, were you like, hey, I want to take over this company one day? Like where was your mind at?
I don't know if I saw the ownership piece yet. I just believed in the company so much.
Yeah.
And was just so passionate about making it great. And, I did see myself running it one day, but I don't know that the ownership piece, I don't know that my mind had kind of opened up to that idea yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that piece was a pretty big leap for me. I had to really step back and look at all the things I didn't know about private aviation, where, yes, I know all about charter, scheduling, day-to-day flight operations, but I didn't have a lot of knowledge around maintenance, taxes, cash flows, acquisitions. And so I really had to take stock of what I didn't know and seek out people to surround myself with that had all that knowledge and just kind of be a sponge. And thankfully, there's plenty of amazing people in the industry that were, happy to give me a front row seat. And I learned a ton that year.
Did you ever read the book, The First 90 Days?
No, but it sounds like a good book.
It's a great, for anyone that's going into a new position or a new job, it's really frames, what a good first 90 days should look like. So it's like anytime anyone's in a new job, it's always the book that I recommend.
Oh, I'm going to look at that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
And then, so now you're VP of the company.
Yep.
Now, how did you feel? Did you have some imposter syndrome?
I did a little bit. Yeah. So I did that for, I think it was a little over a year. And just as soon as I felt like I was getting my feet underneath me, another conversation with Henry. Hey, this is going pretty good. I'm going to retire. So you're president now. And that's probably where the imposter syndrome really kicked in.
Yeah.
And then he made some comment, very kind of in passing, and maybe down the road, if it's going well, we can talk about a buyout or something. So that was sort of planted the seed.
Yep.
So, and he meant it. He retired. I mean, he was out.
Really?
And so now I'm president. Now I'm learning the whole accounting side, the cash flow side, all of that. And as I settled into the role, I realized that it's hard to run a company when there's another figurehead that's not there. Mm-hmm. And I also had...
Which the name of the company is that figurehead.
Oh, yeah. Yes, he is the guy.
Yeah.
And I also had, ideas. I wanted to reinforce certain departments, bring in more people. I really wanted to buy a CJ3. I felt like that was essential for us at the time. It was one of our most in-demand aircraft. Mm-hmm. And, when I looked at the math, it just made sense to own that plane. And he obviously didn't really want to take a lot of risk.
Yeah.
He just wanted things to kind of continue at status quo. So that's really what moved up that conversation of, hey, if I'm going to be carrying this, as if I own it, let's have this conversation now. What's your number? And he was all for it. And it, again, that was another moment where I had to really kind of level up my thinking. And in my mind, to own a company, you had to just have millions of dollars in the bank, and then you could own a company, right? Otherwise, you're always going to be working for someone. And so that was really an interesting time for me and leveling up and realizing that, okay, these 15 years I've put into the company have given me this opportunity that nobody else has. He's willing to sell it to me. And, that has a ton of value. And all this time, being the person that everybody thought cared too much, and all this built up to this point in time. And so, the conversation started. I had his number. The sharks came out. I mean, everybody kind of sensed something was going on. And so I had a ton of people that wanted to partner with me, invest in me. People were, going around me to Henry. And it was kind of an interesting time.
Yeah.
How do I go about acquiring this? Do I take out a whole bunch of debt? Do I bring in a partner? And ultimately, I decided that the least risky way ahead to just keep the company healthy and safe was to bring in a financial partner versus, take out a loan.
Yeah.
And then in bringing the financial partner, it was really important to me that if they were not in aviation, that they didn't have a lot of interest in running the company. I didn't want to be pressured to run the company from a spreadsheet, from people breathing down my neck for a return. And because as we know in aviation, money needs to be patient to do it right. You don't want to feel pressure to produce. And of course you want to have a plan, you want to execute on it, and you want to be successful. But I really didn't want to feel like I had to turn around and just, I wanted to keep the company healthy. So I ultimately found a really good financial partner, just a guy in my YPO group that I was friends with. And, we had a lot of similar ideals for the company and vision for the company. So he came in as my financial partner, and I became 60% owner, he's 40% owner.
And what, when you were looking for partners, what were you looking for? Was it someone in specific industries, or just someone that had similar, the ideas of how a company should run? Like what makes, do you think, a good partner like that?
For this situation, I wanted similar views on how quickly we wanted to grow and scale the company. Somebody that I wanted patient money. Again, I didn't want to have a lot of stress to produce or to stress our decision making day to day. Just somebody that I ultimately clicked with and saw myself working with. And he's been great. He's kind of like our cheerleader, there to step in when we need high level advice. It's been a good situation.
Now is the goal for an eventual growth to exit, or what do you think the goal now is with your now ownership group?
So our goal right now is to become more of a national player. You can only be the hometown hero for so long. I'd say we probably have been it for too long. And so we're, that's really what we're eyeing on is, I don't think either my partner or I are looking for a quick exit at all. We really just want to build a healthy, stable company that just keeps producing. And
you mentioned something really interesting that I want to get your take on, where you talked about it as you joined the company in a sales and dispatch role, you were kind of doing more and having ideas. What, for people that maybe are, coming into a new role in the sales or dispatch, or are joining a new company, maybe they're not new, but they're moving companies. What would you suggest that they do to really set themselves apart so they can grow within a company?
I think really looking at yourselves in terms of your personal brand, because it is a small industry. People take note. You can move companies. And I think really taking ownership of the, again, you're investing in yourself, especially in the early years. And, the front lines are hard. There's so much coming at you on any given day. And I think realizing that you are paying your dues, that this knowledge is yours, and once you have it, you just become more and more valuable in this industry. As you know, it takes a long time to train people and get them to the place where they fully understand, cause and effect. And
I remember when I was a charter salesperson at TWC Aviation, we booked a Hawaii trip for someone. I think he was at EXO at the time. He's now at FlexJet, and he was on an airplane, and we had an owner pull an airplane. And in that time, I think he was going to land in 3 or 4 hours. I'd went out to the market, found a replacement from another company, basically let them know that, hey, we're moving this airplane, here's the client. I did everything, and then the guy landed, and I was like, hey, FYI, the owner pulled it, here's a backup solution, it's the same price, here's all the details, like, here you go. And then he still remembers that story and will still repeat it to this day, where a lot of people in those tougher situations would have just been like, hey, sorry, good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he would have landed 4 hours later and then figured it out, to be like, oh, Dan, figured out, solved a problem where a lot of people would have just been like, hey, sorry, he went.
You were looking out for him.
Yeah,
you
and then went above and beyond.
You showed him that you truly had his best interest in heart.
So and now it really like built a relationship with him, and then like you said, it built my personal brand where he knew that I was dependable. I went above and beyond.
Yes.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then it came back to us. And I think that's something that anyone in probably any sales role really, right? But in charter sales, if you actually are responsive, if you're a good communicator, and you just give a little extra effort, it actually goes such a long way.
Showing that you care.
Yeah.
I know it's such a funny thing, but
to give a shit, you just got to have a little bit of it.
you really do. Yeah.
You talked about taking yourself from kind of a more localized brand now to more, you're really a coast to coast brand now with an office in New York. What was that like? Like, where did you get the idea of, okay, I know we're doing a fantastic job here in California, New York, was New York, did you know, hey, I want to grow New York? Or was it, oh, I've got this person that I know I can build with and they're in New York? How did that come about?
It was a little bit of both. My goal is to be bicoastal. I love New York, so that's always been, something that's been important to me. And then, hired a really amazing sales director out there, Trish Gentile, and it was kind of like if now never. So we really both had the same vision and really jumped in, and it's been a ton of fun. I kind of feel like it's also fun to leave your comfort zone and go somewhere as intimidating as New York and be brand new and make your way. And it sort of is like it's kind of lit my fire again too.
That's awesome.
It's really fun.
What do you think is the goal in let's call it in 2 years? What do you see as the goal of that office or maybe the company growth?
So that office, we would like to have, a reasonable market share, both broker and, charter operations customers. As we build our fleet, we're looking at maybe getting a couple aircraft that float a little bit more, that Schubach is investing in, and so we can really serve people all over.
Yep.
And for sure, the management side as well, which we just acquired our first East Coast-based plane. It was a New York client, but we're going to be basing it in Florida.
Oh,
it's
okay.
A G650. So.
Well, Florida's probably better from a tax standpoint,
Yes.
presumably a
Yes,
better place
absolutely.
than
But
New York.
So not playing small. Where it'll be on charter in a couple months, and
Yep.
we're super excited.
What was your mindset shift when you were, in working for Schubach Aviation to then when you changed into ownership? Was there a different, like, okay, here's how I'm going to approach it now, or?
I've always taken a lot of ownership, so that piece felt natural. It was more understanding, every little thing floats up to you at the top, and you really do realize what owners go through.
Yeah.
Because it's just constant, and just really having to balance big picture and small picture, because it's really easy to get sucked into the day-to-day, but as an owner, you've got to rise above it and look at things as a whole and where you're going next and be a few steps ahead of it.
What about like your decision making? Because when you're spending other people's money, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
When you want to do a marketing campaign, or like you said, when you wanted to buy an airplane, right?
Yeah.
That decision making is a little bit different when you're the one cutting the checks, right?
Yes.
Do you think you're a little less risk averse now that you're in ownership versus maybe when you were before?
I like measured risk. I think you have to take risk to do anything. But I for sure, the spending, you really start to look at what's actually getting, you look at things much more in terms of ROI.
Yeah. With the majority of airplane management companies in our space, I know like the big management companies get a lot of like the news stories and you know, they're in private jet car comparisons, but the majority of our industry are small to medium size, you know, operators. How do you think you differentiate yourself, and you know, as you grow, how do you differentiate yourself when you're a medium size operator against maybe some of the larger aircraft management companies?
We like to say that we have the sophistication of a large operator with a much more personal touch. You know, my team, my DO has run, you know, 100+ fleet aircraft before, you know, fleets before. You know, I really have a big picture team that comes from larger companies. And, you know, I think certain aircraft owners are going to be attracted to the bigger companies. They feel safe, you know, just stay in the lane. And other aircraft owners, you know, they don't want to talk to mid-level management. They want to pick up the phone and call Kim. And I think that personal touch it does resonate with a decent amount of aircraft owners. And, you know, we can customize much more, make it a much more personalized experience. At the same time, we're big enough that we still have the great fuel discounts, the training, you know, the economies to scale. We can offer those as well.
Do you have a goal of like a size, either airplane amounts that like you really, here's where I really want to get to?
So we'd like to be about 40 planes in the next 3 to 5 years.
And where are you at right now?
We have charter-wise, we are at 12 with 3 more in the pipeline, in the conformity process. And then we've got 6 Part 91.
When you are maybe bidding against other operators for an airplane management deal, how do you differentiate yourself when you're looking at, you know, when they're looking at other companies?
I think that point is really where you've got to let them see who you are. You know, to me, a lot of that is going to be driven by who the owner feels comfortable working with, you know, showing the bandwidth of your team, what you can do. You know, I don't know that owners understand that the team structure means a lot. You know, it's if an operator just doesn't have depth and complexity and expertise on their team, it's going to be a very different experience for this owner. You know, if you don't have those check and balances, if you're not really invested in that. And we're definitely not the cheapest company out there. We never will be, because we do invest in our people and we do have a really solid infrastructure built. So I think just letting them know that, and you know, you may be the right fit and you may not be, but it's to me at that point, it's really they're deciding what team do I actually feel comfortable with my plane.
You know, I was having a conversation about just quoting, charter quoting, and booking percentages, you know, where it's, you know, in the 3% range from a quote to book ratio. Do you think there's a fix for that?
Yeah, right now it's such a, like the way that it works, you know, you're a broker, you're going to blast everybody, you're going to, and it
because there may be that one diamond in the rough, right? That's going to be and if you hit the same 4 or 5 people, you may not see that.
Yeah, and we broker quite a bit, so we're in the other shoes as well. So we see that, you know, I think hopefully technology will help us refine that a little bit more. And
are you doing? Me personally, like auto quoting and auto pricing is something that I'm very focused on. That I truly believe is the next step. One of the toughest part about that is on the back end scheduling. How do you get a cleaner schedule, not only from airplane owners, but when you go to book a trip for tomorrow and the pilot says, oh, well, there was nothing on the schedule, so I'm babysitting for my kids yesterday. What's the fix to that scheduling problem that you need to fix first before you really can fix the auto pricing problem, right?
A lot of that's internal to the operator. You know, you've got to have a system with your pilots where they understand they've got to communicate when they're not available and take that off the schedule, and hopefully have enough pilots to kind of rotate in and cover your schedule. With owners, it is a little bit trickier because, you know,
it's their asset, right?
It's their asset. We try to communicate really, really well with them and get a feel for the kind of trips that they will approve and not approve, and just not, you know, waste anybody's time as much as we can. But I agree, it's kind of it's definitely a pain point that
Yeah.
needs some.
That I think if we solve that first, right, then the pricing's pretty simple, right? That's just a mathematical equation. The AI can do that a lot better than we can.
I mean, these new quoting platforms are great too.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And then once that happens, then I think the next step is now we remove, if I can click one button, see what you would price, I now no longer have to request a quote from you.
Or just see that I'm available and what
exactly.
aircraft options I have.
I know what your price is, I know your airplane's available. Then on the other hand, I can then take it and then say, all right, well, here are the 5 Hawker 800s available. Now the value is, all right, well, I really want to go with the Schubach solution. I know it's a little bit more priced than this solution, but me as a broker, like where the value that we can provide is, I've worked with these 5 different companies. They're all the same airplanes. I've seen this airplane. I know their operation. I know their crew.
Yes.
Here's why you should pay.
Yep, I know their
4%
safety standard.
more.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Get a
where
better
like
experience.
that's where I see the industry a little bit evolving, where as eventually over the next 5 years, everyone will move to an auto pricing.
Yeah.
Where I know people are afraid that it's going to, productize everyone and it'll be hard to differentiate. But I think it'll open up a real opportunity to where you can now, if you provide a great service, that's what will differentiate.
That's actually where I think our industry needs a little bit of help. Right now, everybody uses the same 3 quoting platforms, and my quote is going to look like everybody else's, a picture of a jet and a price. And to me, it's already kind of commoditized it.
Yeah.
What it doesn't show is if you are booking a hotel and you have a 3-star option and a 5-star option, you innately understand that the 5-star is going to cost more because you're going to have a better experience. It's going to be higher level. Your expectations should be higher.
Yeah.
The 3-star, hey, I don't care, just give me a better, and we don't have that. The safety ratings are great. That's definitely a first step, but it doesn't fully encompass the experience of the team, and I think that would be huge.
Yeah.
I think if there could be, this company is this price, but they are top tier rated on their service, on their dispatch reliability, consistency, not pulling aircraft, I think that would make the decision making make a lot more sense.
How do you think?
And it would hold operators accountable too.
Yeah. Because then if I'm going to pull this for another trip, or or I should have told you 3 days that
I get a bad rating.
Yeah, exactly.
This episode is brought to you by Charter Flight Support, the only coverage in private aviation that protects you when an aircraft mechanical issue stops your aircraft from flying. CFS not only provides financial support if the replacement aircraft costs more, they also help locate and book quality backup aircraft fast. Learn more at charterflightsupport.com, and don't forget to sign up for their newsletter, The Fix, for real-time insights on private jet trends, aircraft types, and rates. This episode is brought to you by Video Valet. If you care about having the best in-flight experience on your private flights, Video Valet offers up to 1.2 million movies, shows, magazines, and newspapers, all available on board without the need of expensive Wi-Fi or hardware. Eric and his team at Video Valet deliver fully customized iPads to ensure that your preferences are met on every single flight. Whether providing my kids with their favorite shows or allowing me and my wife to catch up on breaking news, I personally could never travel without it again. Video Valet is offering a special promotion to Ironbird podcast listeners. Mention Ironbird, and Video Valet will add 1 free fully personalized iPad at no additional cost. Now, to the Ironbird podcast.
But also, like, when you look at even commercial airlines that are pretty, I see that there is a, Spirit or Frontier flight, or even Southwest, and I see a Delta, sometimes I will pay more depending on the airplane.
Because your experience is going to be better.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's a missing piece right now, especially for customers. They just see a picture of a plane and a price and go, well,
this is a
why
G4,
wouldn't I go?
That's a G4, right?
Yeah.
Why would I pay another $2-3 grand for this G4 versus this one?
Correct.
Yeah. And almost like as there become more hotels, that's where I'm seeing more travel agents seem to be getting more, like they kind of having a little bit of a resurgence, because now there's so much data out there. there's so many hotels and there's all these things that like now it's a little bit, there's almost data overload.
Yeah.
And that's where like that advisory.
Yeah, now you can't make a
role-
decision because you have too many options.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like now like hopefully that advisory role kind of comes back.
I agree.
You mentioned dispatch reliability, which is funny because it's not really talked about a lot because the data is not that great.
No.
Although our friend and sponsor of the podcast, Josh Allen at Charter Flight Support, is starting to capture
Yeah,
that data.
he's gonna pay very close attention to that.
So I think, but how would you suggest for airplane owners, what should they be focusing on to keep their dispatch reliability high?
If you own an aircraft, I mean, it all starts with the aircraft that you buy and the understanding of, is it, how easy is this aircraft to own, right? If you own a Citation product, it's pretty easy to own. You can get parts overnight. It's the understanding how easy is this plane to own? What is its reputation? And, obviously vintage of plane, flight hours, all of that. One conversation I have with people when they're thinking about buying a plane, and they'll see that G4 for $4 million, $5 million and go, why would I buy a CJ? I can get a G4. And it's like, well, because, you're going to pay millions of dollars on the back end on maintenance, on downtime, and there's just a certain percentage of the time the plane's not going to be available to you, and that becomes really frustrating for owners. So it's understanding the whole experience. I think that's number one, is just getting them into the right aircraft. And then I think, just setting them up for success, doing pre-flights, getting out to the plane early, things where you can get plenty of notice if something isn't going correctly. No plane has 100% dispatch reliability, but I do think there's ways to, curb it as much as you can.
When you look at building budgets for airplanes, how many airplane owners want to look at a fully dedicated, director of maintenance role versus maybe some that say, I'm going to do a shared role? And what do you think that has a difference in dispatch reliability?
I think it can. I think it depends on the size of aircraft. When you get into the ultra long range, the big jets, you've got to have your own person that their airplane is their baby. They're, there every second. I think that can absolutely make a difference. I think the smaller aircraft, the fractional model, probably works well.
Yeah. Where do you see, if you were to build a perfect airplane owner for Schubach, what would that be?
It would be an owner that is committed to doing things the right way, that understands that, maybe saving money here kind of isn't actually going to give them the right experience. And an owner that's communicative. I found that new aircraft owners that don't pay much attention at first and don't come in very well prepared are typically don't have as great of an experience because they're caught off guard by everything. I know when an owner is going to be good when up front they're asking so many detailed questions and there's call after call and they're really reviewing things, and it's going to be a good experience because they come in, they're very prepared, and they understand the risks associated, the things that could happen, and I find those owners tend to have the best experiences.
For airplane owners, let's say new airplane owners that are going to buy an airplane, how would you suggest that they go about choosing the right airplane management company?
So I think that's really a people decision. I think that, understand their operating history, their kind of reputation, safety ratings, I think are a big deal. If you're not willing to let a third party operation or you don't have the budget to do it, then something's wrong.
Yeah.
I think that really, a lot of owners really do their homework now. I mean, almost nobody doesn't shop around for options. And so I think, again, find out the infrastructure of the company. It's hard when we're being compared to a tiny little company with 5 people working there that, yes, their management fees are less, but you're going to ultimately get less. And when you're talking about, these assets that are, the way they're cared for does absolutely impact the value.
Why do you think, I've seen this running RFPs for aircraft management, how can 2 companies operating the same airplane show different budgets for an airplane?
Yeah, the budget piece is interesting. Part of it can be their fees and kind of if they're marking things up or what they're doing. The fixed costs I feel like should be pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, we know those costs
Yeah.
pretty well. You know, the variable piece is where it gets. I guess it's how optimistic are you about maintenance and how not.
Yeah.
That's really the piece that's the crystal ball. And it's going to also depend on the aircraft. Where is it in its maintenance cycles?
Mm-hmm.
How old is it? And so if you tell me to do a operating budget for a Challenger 300, I can, you know, again, the fix I can be pretty spot on. But
Pilots are going to be the pilot costs, the
hangar,
the fuel costs.
that's pretty well known. Training, the maintenance, I've really got to go off industry average numbers. And I think too, there's been so much inflation
Yep.
in the last 5 years that it has been hard to keep up with those numbers.
Do you think one company can generate a significantly more amount of charter revenue than others?
I think that the way the charter payback is structured, absolutely, and the way that they're running their operation. I think, you know, are you sharing the extra profits with your owners? Are you paying off the quote versus the flight log? That is a huge differential that most owners don't understand. Do you want to be fixed to this flight log, or do you want to share in the good stuff? And I think that piece is huge. That's what an owner should absolutely ask is, you know, how is this being generated? What happens when you sell an empty leg? You know, the minimums, that all of these things, combining trips. There's a lot of ways to, I mean, our goal for an owner is to make you the max amount of revenue per hour. Yes, I want to get you a lot of hours, but I'd rather get you the most value I can for every single hour versus tie you to this fixed rate based on the flight log, because now you have to put a ton of wear and tear on your plane to make any money. So
I kind of want to dig into that because I think it's a really interesting thing on the different payment structures.
yes.
So you discuss one payment structure where it's basically, here's going to be a flat fee per hour, and that's all you're going to pay an owner, right? So say you've got a Citation CJ3, if it charters at $5,000 an hour, you would pay the owner back a flat fee of either 85%, or we'll just say $4,000 an hour. Now, why would an owner not want to take, hey, I know I'm going to get $4,000 every hour I do, versus what would be an additional way that they might be able to create additional revenue, and what would that look like?
So the additional revenue comes in when you potentially beat the flight times, when
Sure.
I mean, the taxi times. There's definitely.
So you're quoting a flight to Denver, you quoted at 2 hours.
Yeah,
you're collecting 2 hours
I
from
mean, simply
charter
block time versus flight time.
Yep.
There's a profit margin in there
Yeah.
for sure. I think a lot of charter companies, that's where they make most of their profit margin. Again, selling one ways, filling your empty legs. There's a lot of different things you can do.
So in the first flat rate, if we were sold a flight to Denver, we quoted it 2 hours, but it really only flew 1.8. The owner would only get 1.8 hours.
If they're being paid off the flight log,
Yep.
they get 1.8.
He would get 1.8. He wouldn't be getting paid. We're actually collecting 2 hours.
Yeah, correct.
And then say you just were dropping a client and then coming home empty, but now you're actually booked
Yeah.
an empty leg out of Denver for an extra $10,000. There are companies out there that do not share that additional revenue.
That's my understanding.
No, it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
No, it's true.
It's true. One thing I will caveat is when the owner is paying the full crew salary, taking all that, you know, that's really when they need to share in that. There are structures where a company, it's basically like a dry lease, right? Give me your plane, I'm going to pay everything. I'm going to pay the fuel, you know, and in that case, I think really whoever's paying those is the ones who should get.
Because they're taking the risk, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But most owners are taking the risk. Most are in that 85%, and you know they really get kind of capped at what they can make.
Yep.
And our owners almost always make more than per flight than that 85% number.
Yeah.
And again, that's really our goal. Let's maximize your revenue per hour because.
You're going to keep the airplane.
Correct. And if you're if you're also tied to hours, then when you need more money, it's put more hours on my plane. Well, now you have more, you know, engine programs.
Yep.
You're literally devaluing your plane by putting more hours on it.
Do you see that there's a perfect, when you look at hours on the airplane and cost, right? So you've got an airplane, and when it gets to 350 hours, now you need to add an extra pilot, right?
Yeah, there's definitely that
Is
diminishing
there,
return.
where, like, when you look at airplanes, where do you tend to find that diminishing return when it comes to hours?
We look at about 400 hours a year, somewhere in that zone,
Yep.
and depending on the aircraft type.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go much over that, you've got to start adding more pilots, more
Yep.
training, more, and then it just really, it's kind of for naught because you are, it is funny to me when I get past these operating budgets that are, 700 hours a year. It's like, I don't think that operator cares about your aircraft at all.
They're just going to run that ass.
Yeah, or I've even seen 1,000 hours on a plane, and I mean, I don't even know a plane could do that without just, you're basically assuming it's never going to be in maintenance.
There's Citation 10 operators that we track from the WingX data, which is, by the way, the WingX data is incredible. And they're doing 100 hours a tail on Citation 10s a month. And it's like,
That's wild.
it's incredible. And now, I don't know, not sure if it's a long-term strategy, right? Because like, how long can you run?
I think they're probably just going to, hopefully they're modeling those aircraft being worth zero
Yeah.
at the end.
And then they probably part them out, right?
Yeah.
I,
You're definitely not trying to maintain any value.
Yeah, I guess there's probably a strategy where you buy a $2 to $4 million airplane, right? Can you get, 4 or 5 years out of it, and then can you generate enough revenue and margin on those airplanes that you're going to make money after 5 years, and it's going to make more money than what you purchased it for. You make a couple $100,000 at the end, and then you go try and buy another.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's definitely a model for that.
That's pretty high risk, though.
It's very high risk,
Yeah.
and that actually brings up again. If you're a customer selecting an aircraft, do you want to fly in a plane that's flying 100 hours a month?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have some pretty burned out crews.
Yep.
You're gonna,
Your dispatch reliability.
Yeah.
The chance of that
are
airplane.
they deferring maintenance to get to, I have a lot of questions if you're
Yeah.
flying that much.
Yeah. Yeah. And they definitely structure some different things, which I think is interesting, where I've heard they structure pilot pay based on hours flown. So if for every hour that's flown, you're getting a bonus. So now, which like one makes sense that you want pilots motivated to fly, right?
Yeah, you want to align interests for sure.
But there's probably on the other side that, maybe this airplane, maybe you shouldn't MEL this, or
Correct. What is their decision making being influenced by
the
that?
money? Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, and it's a company that I want to learn more about. But shifting gears, I'm really interested in having female leadership in a kind of male heavy industry. Just in your own experience, as you were just in your own company, as you were getting promoted, and
Yeah.
now, like how was that? How was that experience as being more in a leadership role, and then with talking to pilots and talking to other employees? How has that been for you in your experience?
So I think I've been pretty fortunate, again, just to have someone like Henry Schubach believe in me and see my potential. Overall, it's been all right. I definitely think when I sort of became maybe a notch over some employees that had a little bit of a hard time accepting that. Overall, it's been okay. I mean, I think maybe the only couple experiences I can relate is maybe I've interviewed a couple pilots that, didn't look me in the eyes and kept addressing the male sitting in the room, and I thought that was obviously hard pass, but that was kind of interesting. But overall, I've actually felt like it's been more of a strength than anything, and maybe our approach just feels a little different. If you're talking to a whole bunch of different management companies, maybe you just get a little bit different feeling with me, and it's I'm pretty intuitive, I'm pretty empathetic, and I do think that there's I am able to understand people pretty easily and what their needs are, and I actually think that not having a big ego has been a bit of a superpower in this industry as well. I can just resolve issues, take everybody's sides into account, and
How has it been just in the industry and speaking with other people in the industry space, or anyone, when you tell people that, you're the owner and CEO, does anyone kind of like, oh, really?
Yeah, a little bit, that's been fun. But it's, again, I think, I'm so passionate about this industry, and I have such a deep knowledge that I think as soon as we start talking, people understand that, why I'm where I am.
Yeah. Jumping back kind of on the technology train, and we talked a little bit about, dynamic pricing, and you mentioned a little bit about getting into the floating fleet space, but I'm curious, like where you see technology and AI, like where do you think it goes in the next couple years in our space?
Our space needs a lot of technology updates. I mean, we are so people heavy, and that's actually tough as you build your fleet.
Yeah.
You got to keep adding people to do
Yeah.
it correctly. I think more back of the house automated procedures
Yeah.
is huge. Again, like you said, getting a reliable system that can just churn out quotes that
Yeah.
are correct.
But even like brokering a quote. So when you're brokering a trip, that process of like, all right, you're getting all these quotes. Now you've got all these PDFs back. You take those, you type a lot of those into a system.
Yeah, yes.
And then you email it to a customer. The customer picks one. Now you take that one PDF, and then you have to then send it back to the operator. Then they have to send it. Yes, it's good. Now you sign it. Now you send a contract back to the client.
Yeah.
They sign it. That back and forth is like just like every time I do it, I'm like, this is insane.
Why are we doing this
Insanity.
in 2025?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, even all the major quoting platforms, you can't customize. They won't open up their API. I mean, it's like we're all really kind of stuck in this
Yeah.
system. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think on the customer-facing side, yes, you want some automated processes for sure, but there still needs to be a person involved, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I do think it's just such a relationship-based industry that.
Would you ever build an app, or does Schubach have an app?
I mean, we talk about it, but it's. I think it's a lot of brain damage for what we would get at this
Yeah.
point. So we're kind of just watching and waiting.
Yeah. Would you be okay like jumping on another booking app or something, like offering your airplanes on other apps or something like that?
You know, we're aware of them. We've looked at them. I think at this point, not for us. I think we're so focused on the retail space. But I think if there's a good white label app that comes out that kind of allows us to customize and.
I have to give a shout out to my guys at Move, Moove. They're a young team based out of Paris. They built, originally it was built for Part 91 companies. They built shuttle applications for Michelin. So the Michelin flight department, and then they've taken that. Now they built a white label, like you can download the Jet to Cabo app, or Prism is using it now. Really good white label app for airplane operators. I think it looks really great.
Yes, I will have to look at
Yeah,
that.
it ties into quoting software. It was like it was really great. I don't think it's there yet either. Just the whole ecosystem. I think until there's a true I think if you look at it, but I agree. You need that advisor to tell you like what you're looking at, which ones are easy. I think if you want to book an LA to Vegas flight,
Yeah.
I get
it's
it.
a company that you're comfortable
Yep,
with and
yep.
you know what the product is.
But if you're flying into Aspen, you're flying to Mexico internationally, you're flying at night or overnight, you're taking an overnight flight. Like there's so much risk involved that, and unfortunately, even though there's a small percentage of bad players, and I think it's small, but I think when you're looking at booking an airplane and you're putting your whole family or yourself, like even that small percentage, you want to.
Somebody looking out for you.
Yeah, you want it to kind of to do. Personally, from your career, if you were to look back at it, do you have like a career lesson or something that you wish you knew maybe a little bit earlier?
I think there were times that I maybe undervalued myself.
Mm-hmm.
There was one time that I think I was charter sales manager at the time. That we had a situation with an owner who was potentially going to be leaving us, and he had quite a bit of misinformation. And I wrote this really great 3-page letter of all the reasons they should stay, and I didn't put my name on it. I let my director of operations put his name on it because I thought, who am I to say this?
Yeah.
He did, and as soon as he did, I just remember feeling like, why didn't I take credit for these were my ideas and my words, and I think, just really not being afraid of your own power is once you learn, you really understand the magic behind just standing in who you are.
What would you tell people that are getting into the industry today? What are some of the most important things to be successful in the industry?
Learn, be a sponge, just go learning mode, and understand that it takes a long time to learn everything. And just go in and be able to take direction and really understand that it's, once you get that knowledge invested into you and you've amassed it, you really do get a lot of career options open up to you.
Do you think it's hard to do that when you're working from home versus in an office?
I think you lose some of that for sure. I think that there's just by osmosis being in a busy flight department.
Yeah. I being in the office was always a great thing for me. I really enjoyed it on both sides. I enjoyed being the younger person and learning, and then I enjoyed teaching the younger people now.
Yeah.
So it's like it's something I always would recommend to people, like, get in the office.
For us, if you're going to be remote, you've got to be an aviation superstar. You've got to have done this for so long that, and we can feel it, and we know the impact you're making, and at that point, yes, it's worth it.
Yeah.
But newer entry level, they got to be present.
The only reason I got to where I am today, not the only reason, but was because I've made all the mistakes. I've screwed everything up.
Right. You've had to call an owner. You've had to
call a client. I've got those midnight calls where, like, now I never book a flight after midnight. If you want to fly at midnight, you fly at 11:59, because I've made.
On the schedule, it shows up on the wrong day. Yep.
I've made that mistake before. I've had people show up, so it's like I've made all those mistakes.
And that's where the experience piece in what we do is, it's pretty invaluable.
Yeah, yeah. What when you end your career and you're looking back at it and you say, yes, this was successful, what do you think what's going to be defining success for you?
I think it's the team that I'm building. I never want to be the smartest person in the room, and I understand that you've got to have people that are really well aligned and really, we're all just fanatically passionate about what we do. To fit in on my team, you have to be that, or you're going to stand out. So I think the best decisions I've made so far have been, putting together a team that I really trust, that, we all really share that common statement.
No, I think it's a great point. For entrepreneurs or people that want to start businesses in the private aviation space, what suggestions or advice would you give them?
Learn as much as you can up front. The thing I think entrepreneurs outside of aviation is they don't understand all of the variables that can happen. An aircraft might have a part that's 2 months back. So whatever you're budgeting out and forecasting, cut it in half almost. It's just I think that I think understanding all the different factors that can come into play. This really is not a get-rich-quick industry. It really is an industry for people that love aviation, and but again, just amass your knowledge and really understand that piece. And then you can't do anything if you don't take a risk. You have to take that first step that you might seem crazy for taking it, but if you never took it, then nothing else happens.
Do you think there's a fix to the empty leg? Do you think there's going to be someone's going to come up with an empty leg app that's going to fix it?
I think we have to get to a higher mass of people flying. It seems like there's so many entrants in the market, but there's still so many empty legs going on. Eventually we'll get there. But I think there just has to be more customers.
Yep. Awesome. Kim, if someone wants to learn more about your company from a charter side or from an aircraft management side, what's the best way for them to learn more about Schubach and get in touch with you?
Our website, Schubach Aviation, has a management intake form and obviously charter. They just charter at Schubach Aviation. Email goes about anywhere, and anybody can always email me. It's pretty easy, Kimberly at Schubach Aviation.
Awesome. Kimberly, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you very much for watching the Iron Bird podcast. This is Dan Harris. I'll see you next time.